Hi everybody, today I am with Sherine Lovegrove. I met Sherine and worked with her for a year ago and connected with her in that space, and now we're moving forward together and creating here in the summit, which is wonderful. So Sherine, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background so that they can see how wonderful you are.
Thank you, Shona, for saying that. That's really nice. Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, where do I start? Well, I suppose one of the things is that, when we met a while ago, it was on the transformation sort of day. And we both, I think, well, certainly I know that I've gone around and I managed to finish my book and get that going. But part of my qualifications is that I'm a psychotherapist. I'm also a qualified psychologist and have a MSc in cognitive neurosciences. But I also have earlier background in my nursing. So I've kind of got a grounded body, mind, spirit kind of background. At the moment, I basically coach mainly women that are between the ages of 35 to sort of 60, and really more about going through difficult life transitions, because that's kind of where I've been homing my attention recently. Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. Now, one thing I know about you is that you believe the purpose of your being is to contribute to the erasing of what you call incorrect patterning.
Yeah.
How do you think we as a collective might do this?
Yeah, I suppose it's about as an idea, as if we think about that, once we clear ourselves, we are clearing for others. But I think more in the idea that when we consciously clear for others, we clear more. So we have kind of like a personal clearing, which all of us do, where we go back on our own sort of patterning. But I think that sometimes when we start to really think more and more about, oh, does this really belong to me? No, it feels like it's deeper. It feels like it's something that's been with me forever. Then that kind of stuff is more about a collective. And really what you want to do is be able to just release it and just say, I release this. And the interesting thing is that everything is a frequency, isn't it? Everything is an energy. And if we give it a directive that's a forceful energy with intention, then you can change that DNA structure. You can change the winding or the unwinding of it in a different way. So when we give a frequency that's a high order frequency, we are changing lower order frequencies and moving them away.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you made there, because the importance of letting go of stuff is crucial for, as you say, raising vibration. And ultimately, as we clean out, I'm going to say, we alter DNA patterning and structure so that we all function on that higher vibrational level. So in regards to that, did you not create the iCAN model?
Oh, yeah. I think iCAN was a start of my journey.
Yes.
So I suppose the iCAN was focused initially on me and only me, to be honest. When I was writing my book, I wrote because I had lost a lot of weight, and I was looking at the process that I took behind that weight loss, and also the fact that it stayed off. And in the process of doing the iCAN, I also stopped drinking, which was totally unexpected. It wasn't what I wanted, but I realized that it was in alignment with my goal. If I sort of looked at it more from an idea of my neurobiology, because I realized that there must be something changing in our brain. in order for us to reach certain points and not go back. You know, a lot of the time we can all change, but if we haven't got enough neural energy in a particular way, that is, there's enough to maintain it, then what happens is we backtrack, don't we? There isn't energy is what allows things to continue in motion. And if that one energy is stronger in the pattern that we have been in, then the new change is only going to be temporary. So what you need is to build enough energy so that that change stays permanently. And that is what I thought was about chasing the aha moments, because aha moments have the ability to generate really very, very high energy frequencies. And it allows it to be there sufficiently long enough so that you're able to almost hardwire a change there and then. In actual fact, Bruce Ecker says that what happens is in an aha moment is you get spillage happening. So you have chemicals released. It's almost like the whole brain is in coherence. So instead of the brain working in different areas and doing their own little things, each little area, what happens is there's a frequency wave that's strong enough that each of them gather up, and you get this almost like a crescendo, like you listen in an orchestra. Yeah. So every instrument plays at the exact same frequency, almost in the exact same time. And what that happens is it causes this overspill in the brain. And for a period of time, there's a moment of what we would call timelessness. Yeah. And I would call it being out of time. So in sort of space-time rather than at the time we know, out of time. And in that out of time moment, we get downloaded with immense amount of information. And because that information is at such a high frequency, our brain starts to go into a kind of gamma rays, a gamma wave. And the gamma wave is very, very high. And what it does is it just overwrites the old pattern, literally, because in the neural space, only one message can pass. And so it actually overwrites the message. So part of the iCAN process is to do systematic kind of exercises frequently, consistently, in order to build this energy. And you see the changes because you start to get a lot of synchronicities happening, an immense amount of synchronicities, and you can actually feel it build up, almost like a tidal wave. Yeah. So that was my sort of moment where I thought, wow, this is what it is. It's making sense of the science. It's making sense of all the consciousness kind of stuff. And it makes sense even on the Gnostic or religious sense of what a mystical experience is. Yeah.
Yeah, the brain is a awesome
yeah.
thing. It's everything is in the brain. The universe is in the brain, and yet you can change how your body moves by focusing in the brain. And everything. And yeah, I know that's part of obviously big part of your work through the psychology and everything else, and understanding the brain. Can you go a little bit deeper into that for us, and how it works through the ability to rejuvenate the body?
Right. Okay. So, well, aging, I mean, I was listening to something today again with aging, but aging is essentially, I think, the idea is that we are in a state of entropy. So entropy is that when we are burning in a particular way, so all cells have to use energy to burn, to function. And as we experience life and we overload our bodies, or we live our lives with thoughts that stress us, or the kinds of foods that we eat, or the company we keep, you know, the environmental aspect, our spiritual aspect, all the things that may not be of a high enough resonance, what happens is this causes deposits in our body. And so our body has to work a lot harder in order to deal with that. But it works harder because it needs more energy. And we either don't have enough, what we call mitochondria, or we don't have enough. You know, if you think about energy, energy can burn like jet fuel, which is like super duper fast and super duper clean, and which is what like children are, or it can be like coal, which is dirty and it leaves deposits. So we've got to think about this idea that with aging, what we want to do is to burn more cleanly. So the biggest thing, that's the biggest factor, is our thoughts with regards to how we think about even our food, how we think about what we do. All of these kinds of things will all influence the way our food uptake is. So it really, I suppose, on the one thing, I think the most important thing is that you certainly have an ability to have an awareness that something is going on and a willingness to think differently. But there's another thing that comes in with energy, is the fact that when we have very high order thoughts, what often happens then is we're giving a very high order frequency energy to our body. So our body literally sheds stuff in another way. And if you think about our body being just let's just think of the sense of all neurons, everything has to fire according to ions or salts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the more our salts are able to move around in our body, the more that we can be more efficient. So I think it's a case of, if we think about everything as just the energy of the way our body produces energy and the way our body stores or releases stuff, then aging is all about that. But the thing that I was really starting to focus on was, we know that if you put yourself back, there's been a couple of experiments where they've actually put people back in time, where they've been sort of like in a little enclosure, listening to the same music, looking at the same newspapers that they did when they were a lot younger, and all these sort of things, in a very closed environment. And what happens is these people were starting to feel younger. They were actually, a lot of their illnesses disappeared, particularly the old age related kind of illnesses. Hand to what's the coordination? Not hand to mouth coordination, but you know, coordination with hands and things like that. They were actually much faster. So their reaction time was faster with things, and that was just putting them in another environment. And that was when I started to think, oh, this is what the Bible was talking about. That we need to enter the world, or the aspect or the belief structure that comes into the idea that, you know, we have to think about this possibility of, we're in this now. So if we think that we're getting older and time is moving, because time is it's not relevant outside time, is it? It's only relevant inside time. So if we're imagining and being in that state, or the vortex, or whatever what anyone calls it, but if you're in that state where you can suspend time, then your body is able to reboot. Your body is able to, well, we're still going to get older, but we can get older a lot slower physically.
Yeah. With ease and grace.
Yeah. Yes, I need to change the grey hair. But you know what would happen if we did that? Oh my God, it'll be like the 4-minute mile. Everybody will be able to get their hair back to their normal color.
Yeah, that's the next thing we need to do.
That's what we have to do.
In the process of rejuvenation. Yeah, because there is actually a part of the brain, isn't there, called the colostrum, that has a oil that secretes, and that helps to rejuvenate and recreate as well. And I find, when, I'm sure you do as well, Sherine, when you connect with the core of your being and you breathe with that, you naturally have that rejuvenation taking place. And there's so many beautiful points you're bringing up as well, on the, like time and space, and how time really is irrelevant. It's like a entrapment strategy.
Yeah, yeah, it is an entrapment strategy. And I suppose while we're on this earth plane, we're going to experience some of that, because, you know, obviously if we are still in this body, we're going to experience, because we have entropy. Okay, entropy. So we will have more increased randomness in some way or other. However, I think the ultimate goal is not to worry too much about getting old. I think the secret is about how do we stay young. So, you know, and that's really where we should be focusing more, not in the idea that it's our right to stay physically young.
Yeah. And naturally as well, what I'm seeing so beautifully all around me, not just here, but around me generally, is that when people kind of keep going with what they love, you know, and they don't stop, I find when people stop, like they go to, I don't know, 60 or 65 or whatever, and they say, oh, right, now I'm an old fogey, and they sit in a chair for all eternity or whatever. And then,
I know.
And it's, you know, and you just see the age just falling in on top of them.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, it's all about choices, because you can go into that space, and yet when you come out, you just, if you come back out of it, you just instantly rejuvenate. The youth returns, the heart glows, and purpose is restored. And everything just flows again in a much more joyful way. And that's the wonderful point that you're making, is that, you know, the importance of choice and just letting go of rubbish and
well, if you think that everything that's there, isn't it? If you're like this essence of spirit in some way, and you're dying to get out, but all you have is this stuff, and you know, if you're able to shed that, if you're able to let that go, and you know, we all have stuff that we as women that have been there for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries, and in this lifetime we can choose to not live in fear, and we can choose to live with love. So we can choose to do these two things so that we can become who we're meant to be in this lifetime. And that is really kind of like the goddess, really, I think. As women, I think, and men, they'll end up being what they are, which is the God form, or the masculine energy, rather than, and will be the feminine energy. And that's what we are in this lifetime. But we don't need to carry those past learnings anymore. We don't need to hold that, because they don't hold true anymore. So it's really about learning what is the divine energy that we hold now, where we don't fight with ourselves, and we use it to express it to the fullness of ourselves. And at the same time, the moment we express what is the fullness of us, we let go, don't we? Everything else moves, and we get lighter, we get brighter, we get shinier, we feel happier, and that just takes the weight off us, you know. And then you automatically you're running at a higher frequency, your steps are bouncing, and you know, you don't get so ill as quickly.
And the higher your vibration, the more health you get, and you do get to a point where you're not ill at all. I haven't been ill for years, but it's when you get to that point where you just are being, and you've cast off the thoughts, so they're not there anymore, and you're just flowing with what's provided. And then one thing that you touched on there, and because I know you work with it, and you said at the beginning you work with women quite specifically, redressing the imbalance in the masculine and feminine polarities.
Yeah.
What's this about for you, and how might it serve the bigger purpose of the world at large in your...
Yeah. I think that the start, I suppose when I think about it, I mean, I've always worked mainly with women, because I was, in the earlier days, it was working with women that were pregnant and helping them either get pregnant or deal with them during the pregnancy and then be there for the birth. And even during that period of time, I was always interested in how mothers would be with their daughters and sons. So from a very early stage, I was trying to bring awareness in letting moms know that they and there's an automaticity of how we treat our sons and how we treat our daughters, and the expectations that we have, maybe not even knowingly that we have them. And so I always found that that's what I was doing, and yet I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. I know it sounds really weird. I used to always talk about power struggles and things like that. And I suppose I had come back from a background where, in South Africa, very male dominated, but also the fact that, personally, my father, although I know he loved me dearly, there were things that were really made me feel less. And I felt that I had to be stronger, firmer. I had to find my way. But the result is I didn't learn how to keep my heart open. I shut my heart quite a lot. And that caused me to constrict. And I think that is really against the nature of who I am. And I've been working with that more and more and more, particularly for myself. And recently going into looking at how helping women, well, when I went into my own menopause, I had a relatively painless menopause. I mean, it was really weird. I never had one hot flush. That was weird. But I think I was doing a lot of cleansing at the time. So I went through that pretty quickly and pretty easily. But a lot of women struggle. And what often happens is once you get to the menopause, there's a change. People start to kind of not care so much anymore. They tend to be discontent with their partners, and sometimes they're not there. They want to go for their kids too, in a way, or they either get into that period of time where they become incredibly frightened because the empty nest syndrome. So you get these two situations happening. And I think what I started to really notice was a lot of these fears were based biologically first. We were going through the fears of, we know that if you experience unhappinesses in your life, you will adapt. You will either do your fight, flight, freeze. Everybody seems to know that one now. And you'll either constrict or you will fight. You'll do one or the other. And what I found for myself was most women that were coming to me, either they were having their husbands leave them, or there were separations, there was, difficulties with kids and things like that, is that they really were running this operational pattern from, first of all, I sort of was curious, how come they're experiencing this? And we went into their kind of past and things like that. But actually, it was really deeper than that. It was the fact that they were born a woman. And the fact that their brain changes as a result of estrogen. And now they were in menopause, and now they've got less estrogen and more testosterone. And that was creating a change. And I guess what I wanted to, what I was then, trying to get back to your question, which is, how is this going to be helpful for people? Well, I think first of all, we need to clear that effect that people, because we're a woman, not understanding that our biology makes us think differently from men. Yeah, it makes us think differently. We know when we can move into a more masculine kind of energy, often what happens is you have actually less emotion attached to it. And a lot of the things that women don't really understand this. They don't understand that our hormones create changes in our brains that make men often less sensitive to feelings. That's not saying they don't have them, but they're often less sensitive, certainly to our feelings. And women, often we like to be externally referenced. So basically we look to see the approval of others rather than self-referenced as men are. And if you look at little boys and little girls, men, it happens anyway, right from the very, very early stages. Men are more in, they're in their space, and women are not. But if women recognize that, then they can recognize it's not their fault that they had that feeling, that they were actually, it was a directive of our evolution rather than just social conditioning, although social conditioning is built on that. And it frees you up quite a lot, actually. It frees up a lot of that other stuff that gets in the way, and you can go, oh, well, it's not my fault. Okay, so I can do something about it because this is not my fault. This is not necessarily about this, this, and this. I don't have to get angry about my father so much or any of those. I just have to know that this is about this. And for me, even just acknowledging that has made a huge difference in the way I think about things now. And I think that is, for me, this is the key. This is the key for helping us redress that balance, when we can either step more into our masculine energy, but also then we can truly understand how to actually communicate with men differently.
Yeah, it's about getting the balance, isn't it?
It's about getting the balance. They are 50% of the world's population. I know, or maybe a little less, because evolution-wise, there's more women than men. But technically, that imbalance. I was thinking today, that imbalance should never have happened. Why did it happen? What happened that women didn't? Part of our evolution is that we stuck together in clans. Why didn't we fight together a long, long time ago? What was it that kept us, stuck? These kinds of things. And maybe it was just our biology that did it to start off with.
Yeah, because the biology, certainly the brain, as going back to the brain again, and the central nervous system has such a big part to play in how we are and behave, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I think when it's not, it's really weird. When it's not your fault, it makes a big difference for letting go, because it just gives you that space, Whereas if you constantly, and I do think women are very hard on themselves. They can be very hard when they don't get their way, when they don't move forward and they're stuck. And just saying that, it makes such a difference to them. It just frees up so much shit.
When we get out of our own way, everything changes, doesn't
it? Exactly. But we sometimes we need to have a really good understanding of why, and very often we haven't had that understanding.
That's true, and that actually touches on another point as well, which is kind of like conscious parenting. Obviously, if you've never had it, you don't know how to provide it, but it's about nurturing the aspects that you see that will help the child just to be and to always follow purpose. That's kind of what we've lost along the way, I guess, through trauma and things, again, that's all stored in the brain and central nervous system on our journeys until we say no and clean it out.
Well, I've been doing a lot of the Ho'oponopono. And that's what I've been doing every day for the last month or two. And it has really shifted an energy in a very different way. And I think it's just really because now I'm really looking at it that it isn't our fault. The collective stuff isn't our fault. We're just, in this lifetime, we're just carrying it. but it is our job to get rid of it. So that's what I'm kind of thinking more. So it's about knowing and owning that yes, we have it, it's with us, but we can really help our sisters of the past and the men of the past. We can clear it, because we've been both of them. We've been reincarnated many times. So we need to clear both those energies.
Yeah, because everything is present now, isn't it?
Exactly.
Past, present, future. Even that's a strange concept, thinking the future is now, but everything is now. So,
Yeah.
So, it's just an awesome space that we are living in a wonderful time of evolution and awareness, and how what we've always known coming together, the spirit and science are actually beginning to mold and work in tandem, and that's, I think, is going to bring big changes to the collective in itself, and especially through people like yourself, Sherine, because you are both sides of it. So when you have someone that comes to you, you look at all angles of everything, and really help the person to ground who they are and be who they are.
Well, I did my best, but I think what was missing for me, and because I always wanted, I remember when I spoke to my partner a long time ago, I was talking from sort of more a religious kind of background, and I would talk about stuff, and he said, you need to go and read A Brief History in Time by Stephen Hawkins. And when I read the book, I said, they were talking about the same thing. There's nothing different. All it is two different languages. And I've been looking for a way to find a language that's going to create the bridge. And in South Africa, we used to have on the mines, they actually made a language for the mines, so that African people learned the mine language, which is called Fanikalo, and it would have a mixture of different other languages, and it would just be sort of a hodgepodge, and everybody learned it. And in the same kind of way, I think quantum physics has created a kind of a place where all of a sudden we're jumping into the same reality in some way, so we can have a greater sense of understanding. I mean, we're not completely there yet, because we haven't, if you have someone that's a straight physicist, he's going, oh, that isn't quite right. But if you can use it as an analogy, then you start to get a whole new paradigm coming into play. And I'm doing my PhD with the Quantum University, and they really talk about this idea of consciousness and downward causation. So everything is consciousness first, and if everything is consciousness, then it's the ground of all being, and everything can exist in it. Whereas before, when we were sort of coming from the body up sort of process, then consciousness doesn't have to be in that. We don't have to be conscious in the body. We may have a consciousness, but we may not have awareness of that consciousness. So I guess that's it's kind of a turning around of the paradigm, which is great. So it gives us an idea to look at everything from that perspective. But then it's not any different from looking at it from the Kabbalah, because they talk about the different levels, and each level has got different layers,
Yeah, it's just many, many ways of saying the same thing, and it's which one fits you best, really.
Yeah, and I think some will call you. Some will call you more than others, And for me, probably, strangely enough, and I don't know why, the Kabbalah is what calls me.
Yeah.
Very odd. And it always has. Strange, from that thing. But I've gone to the East, and I recognize the symbols, and I go, oh wow. And if I meditate them on, I get the same kind of thing. But I don't get the same symbolic stuff that comes to me as quickly as what it does with the Kabbalah.
Yeah, it's all very powerful stuff, working with consciousness and just simply being and flowing. That's a whole new concept to some people that are so bogged down with thoughts and trying to be other people's expectations and opinions or whatever. They speak to them of freedom and it's like, pardon, what?
They don't know what that means.
Yeah. So, and that's all part of what you give people from both sides of the fence. You cover more bases with people, and that's in a way gives really good grounding for consciousness. You kind of bring the new paradigm to ground in a way that people would connect to, that are only see science. And that is that's an important bridge, actually. So you provide a very important part to the shifting consciousness that's occurring in this day and age right now.
And I think we all are
in this space. And
I think that's everybody's job, even though they may not be aware of it. But there are some people that do it outside awareness, but then I think that if they are doing it outside awareness because they're just simply being, they are already probably well evolved souls. And don't really need to know it in this, maybe I'm making a judgment here, but in general, the innocence of just the state of being in relaxation and being free and living in the moment. I think if you get a person like that, they're blessed. They're absolutely blessed. I'm still learning to be and just be and do a couple of doings and then be and be again. It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
We're all evolving, all at different paces and in different ways. And whilst we're in this space, we never stop evolving, because that's what it's all about. It's what we're here for, to clean up and evolve. And so there's always going to be something that's going to come up at some point when you least expect it. It's like, whoa.
I mean, this was really weird this weekend. Something came up for me which was all about recognizing my own fear about something, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is what women will experience. So you need to go through this yourself. You need to live that truth, own it, feel the constriction, and then do something with the constriction, open it up. It was quite an interesting thing, and you just, when you think you've sorted it, other things come. So I think it's we're going to be clearing for a long time, I think. But I think the great thing is now is we've got the means to test it. We've got the means to see where the changes are, whereas poor Leonardo da Vinci didn't. So I'm really grateful for that. And someone was saying to me the other day, well, he probably wouldn't have been an extraordinary man in this lifetime. Because there are lots of extraordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Most of them we don't even know that they're doing them, because they're so humble about it.
Exactly.
There's a lot of beauty in the world to tap into, and and as I said before, Sherine, you're a wonderful bridge for both worlds.
So are you.
Both spaces, and you introduce the consciousness in a way that everybody will understand, the new paradigm in a way that everybody would understand it, even those totally engulfed in science would understand the way you explain it. So yes, you have a very kind of important and grounding role in the journey of going forward. Is there anything else that you want to add, Sherine, about you before we finish?
Not really, but I didn't mention that I had written the book, which was the aha moment, in which the iCAN model is in there, and really, it talks a little bit about my journey and about losing weight, but more about the idea of the process of the model through which my journey went, and I go step by step through that. And I talk a little bit about the way the brain changes. So there's a couple of things over there, which is talking about the 3 natural barriers to change, which is all about the inability to have a coherence between the brain, the brain and the heart. So when our heart is going crazy, the brain kind of goes offline a little bit. So it's really about how do we bring these things together. And the more we do that, the greater we create the coherence in the whole of our body, not just in the brain. So that's quite good if we think that every organ, every cell actually resonates at its own frequency, so that if we create coherence, we're actually creating coherence everywhere when we start to do that. And the second one is that our brain likes to change because it loves novelty, but it also prefers to stay the same, which is why people relapse, and that's why it's really quite important for people to do something consistently that creates more energy, and in a very systematic way. And the third one is that what we perceive, we often believe, and often it's not true. But also once we've perceived it, we often can't be fooled again. So it's about recognizing that sometimes we can't undo what we see too, which is also a thing. And a little about the pattern matching and the error detector. So hopefully something practical, so that people are able to take examples about what I've done and apply them directly to themselves. Doesn't matter what, whether it's weight loss, whether it's for drinking. It's mainly geared for addictions. So anybody that has a behavior that they want to change and haven't been able to. And yeah, and that's really where with the book, and also just my desire and my wish to work more with women and work on the level that I want to do. So that's clearing the passage so that we can be the fullness of our being right now in this lifetime, with love and at the same time power. So have both, not that it's separate.
Yeah. So yeah, claiming the power.
Yeah.
Very important.
Owning it, really. Owning it, because it is ours.
Yeah.
We've just forgotten that we have power.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all very powerful people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to learn about claiming yours with Sherine, you can connect with her through the website. Her website and credentials are on there. It's atoughworldoutthere.com, and Sherine will look forward to seeing you all and helping you all going forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for creating this platform. I mean, it's really fantastic.
Thank you.